45 minutes left. God is trying to reach you and you always skip this. Don't hurt God to skip. Something unexpected is going to happen suddenly. Open it quickly. The sound isn't coming from the outside, it's the ticking inside your spirit, louder now than it ever should have been. Something is wrong with time itself. It drips sideways, clings to the edges of your thoughts like black honey, and you feel it, not passing, but collapsing. It started with the forgotten hour, the one you always skip. The moment where everything in you whispers wait, but you scroll instead, or sigh, or sleep. You were warned in your own dreams, but your waking self learned how to silence them too well. The moon trembled behind torn clouds last night, as if it saw what was coming and dared not speak it. The ground beneath you feels normal, but something ancient has shifted beneath it. The veil between what is and what hunts is paper-thin now, and it isn't waiting. You feel it in the corners of silence, the sudden memories that don't feel like yours, the faces that linger too long in your mind after you pass them. You're not haunted, not exactly. You're being pursued, and it's not darkness that wants you first, but glory. There is a name written in fire across your ribcage, and it's not the one this world gave you. You can't read it. Not yet. But every time you almost break, it glows hotter, a reminder that something remembers what you were made for. God says the hour has fractured and nothing will wait for your yes anymore. The storm has already chosen you, whether you answer or not. You're not where you think you are. This reality has become distorted, warped like a mirror soaked in oil. And it started the moment you ignored that last sign, the one that didn't look supernatural but was. That strange delay, the gut pull, the missed call. Every angelic intervention is subtle until it must strike. There is a corridor in the unseen realm opening behind you. You didn't see the door form, but it has teeth and it remembers your bloodline. Some part of you stepped through already, in a forgotten night under silver sky. And now it's come collecting. You weren't supposed to survive what hit you. You weren't supposed to be overlooked either. Your survival was marked by heaven not as accident but rebellion, against darkness, against timelines that cursed your name, against a plan hell couldn't understand. Archangel Michael says the binding is breaking on your timeline and the interference is collapsing. That's why things keep unraveling when you try to hold them together. You were never meant to keep the false web intact, you were born to burn it. Every delay has been a recalibration. But now the final alignment is happening and your ignorance can no longer protect you. Skipping this again would not be apathy, it would be treason. You are in the hour of switching. One shift and you are in a new consequence. One whisper and you're in the old curse. Choose. That's what time has become now, not passage, but partition. You've asked for signs. God gave them in dreams, in disruptions, in doors that slammed shut not to wound you, but to seal out your destruction. You kept looking for the beauty first, but this is not a season of roses. This is a season of smoke. In the distance, something is waking that once bowed to your voice. It doesn't remember your weakness. It remembers your authority. But the longer you refuse to remember it, the louder the false voices get. There are letters written into your bones, language no man taught you. You were meant to read what moves behind the wind, to hear the thunder before it reaches the earth. You were meant for now. God says you're standing on the edge of an hour that does not repeat. There is no second storm. There is no gentler call. You will either be delivered into the mystery or dissolved into the noise. The old coverings are disintegrating. People you thought were part of your journey were only shadows sent to distract you. You'll see their faces blur soon. Truth always peels off masks under divine pressure. The angels are gathering at your perimeter now. They know you haven't answered fully, but they haven't left. That's how loved you are. That's how dangerous your yes has always been. You were born for thresholds, not routines. Every time you choose numbness over presence, your mantle dims, but it does not vanish. It waits, like breath behind glass, until the fire returns. And the fire is returning now. You were led in by voices that felt familiar, but they weren't sent to guide, they were sent to monitor. Not all open doors are invitations. Some are traps carved to look like favor, painted in colors you prayed for, soaked in counterfeit light. What you thought was a blessing was bait. The laughter, the opportunity, the perfectly timed affection, it all bent around your need for recognition, and they knew it. You stepped into agreements that looked like safety, but smelled like old smoke if you really let yourself notice. Inside those rooms, something was listening. Every word you whispered in desperation, every compromise disguised as patience. You thought you were waiting on God, but God was waiting on you to see the hook beneath the honey. This is where betrayal begins, not outside you, but beneath the version of yourself you still pretend to be. You've been dragging a shadow self through doorways your soul never agreed to. And now that version is starting to crack. The ones around you don't all see it, but they sense it. That something's shifting. That you're not playing the same spiritual games anymore. The ones who can only love the version of you that stays small, watch their loyalty drain like water from broken skin. You walked into rooms that whispered promises but echoed curses. Everything began to shift when you ignored the unsettled pull in your chest. The smell of manipulation was always in the air. You just called it charisma. Archangel Michael says every false covenant has begun to rot from the inside out, and the spirits tied to them are howling now. That's why the conflict is rising without clear cause. It's not personal, it's spiritual eviction. You are being pulled backward by familiar chains disguised as routine, the same voice, the same empty comfort, the same pattern that always leads to regret. And still, you linger. Not because you're blind, but because some part of you is afraid of what purity will demand. There are hands reaching for you in the spirit that never had the right to touch your purpose. And they know it. That's why they cloak themselves in nostalgia and obligation. If they can't destroy you, they'll convince you to stay asleep near them. This is the hour of separation. What looked like alliance is about to rupture under weight it was never meant to carry. They will say you've changed. Let them. Heaven has begun exposing everything you tried to keep sacred but was secretly sick. You're standing on the border of divine confrontation. You feel the push, but the old room keeps whispering. It tells you it still needs you. But nothing that truly needs you will demand you shrink to stay near. You've been surrounded by beautiful sabotage, words wrapped in flattery, decisions shrouded in delay. But the stench is breaking through now. Even your body is reacting. Pay attention to the resistance in your spirit. That's not doubt, it's divine clarity rising. God says your hesitation is becoming a doorway for spiritual thieves. You were never meant to share your vision with those who mock your wilderness. What you call inclusion, heaven calls invasion. Every delay has made the enemy bolder. That's why the pressure is no longer subtle. You're being watched by forces that still believe you belong to your old cycle. But they're about to be proven wrong. There are names written on you from past agreements that you never broke cleanly. The cords are thin now, but they're still binding. Some of them call themselves love. Some of them call themselves wisdom. None of them are truth. The veil is lifting in layers now. What once looked golden is starting to ooze black around the edges. What once felt safe now drips with distortion. This isn't paranoia, it's perception returning after too long a sleep. Archangel Michael says you were marked for extraction the moment you said, yes, in your spirit, even if your mouth stayed silent. The war has already begun around you. This is why you feel torn in every direction at once. Do not be afraid of their mourning when you leave. You were their idol, not their companion. They needed you broken to keep shining. But heaven has no more tolerance for shared altars. You can feel it, can't you? The growing pressure in rooms you once called sanctuary. The air has thickened. The light bends wrong. That's not imagination. That's the atmosphere shifting because you are finally being called out. This next door won't open until you shut the last one fully. Half closures are still open covenants. And the enemy hides inside your compromise. You were built to discern this moment. Every betrayal forged your spiritual antenna. You don't need more signs, you need holy audacity, the kind that walks away from applause if it isn't pure. God says you will not leave these rooms quietly. Not because of drama, but because your absence will be an earthquake. You were a stabilizer in places that were never stable. You were the last mercy before judgment. The masks are melting. Watch carefully. Their true faces are almost revealed. Don't run when it happens. Stand. Let them scream. Let the counterfeit collapse. Your deliverance begins with refusal. There is a room inside you that no one has ever entered, but it is not empty. It holds every version of yourself that you left behind in order to survive. They are not sleeping. They are staring at you now, asking if this is finally the moment you stop pretending. You thought you buried the pain. You only taught it how to walk in silence. It learned to smile, to perform, to wear what people praise, but now it's cracking open, because divine light never negotiates with disguise. Something is rising from the floor of your spirit, slow, aching, divine. It carries the sound of old weeping and future thunder. You know it's holy because it terrifies the part of you that still thinks you can stay the same and be transformed. The mirror you've stared into for years just blinked back. You saw it. That was not imagination. That was recognition. The version of yourself you keep confined behind your trauma has grown teeth. God says your soul has begun the process of recovering what your mind still tries to forget. There is a language beneath language speaking through your fingertips. That's why your hands burn after prayer. That's why you tremble when you almost speak truth. You were called to be a vessel, not a vault. But you've sealed too much behind lock and logic. The pain you avoid has begun bleeding through the walls of your self-control, and heaven is letting it leak. There is no healing without revelation. And revelation feels like ruin when you've built your life around avoidance. You are being unmasked, not before people, but before the throne. Your tears are not weakness, they're the flood that will baptize your next authority. Cry. Wail if you must. This is not breakdown. This is resurrection in reverse. You're going back to gather what you abandoned before rising. The angels are still here. But they're silent now. Watching. Waiting. They can't help you lie to yourself and still call it peace. The next move is yours. And it must be made without a mask. Archangel Michael says the blade is coming, not to destroy, but to separate. To cut soul from lie. To expose every hidden chain that's been twisting your truth into compliance. He's not coming gently. He's coming with flame. The mirror is bleeding now. Not with blood, but with time. Everything you ran from is pouring out in color and sound, and your refusal to deal with it will not stop it. The leak has become a flood. You remember the voice that first told you to dim your power. You remember the betrayal that taught you silence was safer than truth. You remember the moment you agreed to be small so they could feel big. It's all returning now, and it demands justice. You cannot cast out what you protect. You cannot be healed from what you excuse. You cannot be free while still bowing to the idol of, "I'm fine." This is where it begins, the sacred confrontation. The reckoning of the soul. Not because God is angry, but because He's not willing to let you live half-born any longer. You feel heat behind your eyes when you remember their names. You feel your throat tighten when you think of the moment you almost said something and didn't. That's not trauma anymore. That's testimony trying to get free. The wind is changing. You hear voices in your memory like echoes inside glass jars, muffled, distorted, still alive. But your spirit is louder now. And heaven is amplifying what you once silenced. God says the mirror isn't showing you your past. It's showing you the lie you called identity. It's breaking not because you're losing yourself, but because you're finally seeing who was always buried under survival. There are wounds in your memory that formed your personality. You thought it was just who you are. But it was who you became to avoid breaking. That version has expired. The divine is unzipping your timeline. Not to shame, but to rewrite. You keep trying to edit the fruit while God is ripping out the root. Stop fighting the excavation. You cannot be whole while clutching fragments. You've blamed yourself for too much. You've excused others for too long. The imbalance has built a prison around your discernment. And heaven is tearing down the bars. You will feel anger. Good. Let it come. Let it cleanse. Righteous anger is often the first breath of a soul no longer content to be gaslit. Archangel Michael says the sword only cuts where lies live. So if you feel the sting, look closer. There's a false identity trying to hold on. It will not survive this holy exposure. Every illusion is cracking. The people who loved your brokenness more than your truth, they will fall away like dead leaves. Let them. You're not being left. You're being liberated. This isn't chaos. This is alignment in disguise. It just looks like war because everything fake has to scream before it dies. God says you are not under attack. You are under reveal. This is what happens when the veil rips and you're no longer willing to hide behind pretty theology and shallow hope. There is beauty ahead, but not before blood. The spiritual kind. The old covenant kind. You are not here to look healed. You are here to be reborn. And rebirth never happens clean. The fire that now descends is unlike any flame you have known. It does not consume flesh or ignite fear. It settles silently within your bones, a quiet inferno that purifies without smoke or ash. It is the fire of divine justice, a flame that unravels lies while preserving what is true. You feel it spread slowly, a heat beneath your skin that hums like a sacred hymn only you can hear. The air around you thickens, pregnant with an invisible energy that bends the light but reveals the darkness beneath it. This fire is not judgment from without, it is judgment from deep within. God says this fire is not to punish but to redeem. It is the flame that separates gold from dross, truth from deception. It moves gently through the chambers of your heart, seeking every hidden corner where falsehood once nested. You try to resist, to hide the parts of you that tremble beneath its touch. But resistance only fans the flames. The fire knows no compromise. It does not demand your surrender, it demands your awakening. The moon trembled again last night, not out of fear but reverence. It witnessed the beginning of your transformation, a sacred unmaking that must happen before the new can be born. The shadows around you recede, not because they are defeated, but because the fire exposes their true shapes. Archangel Michael says this fire carries the sound of justice, a deep, unyielding roar that echoes through the heavens. It is not the roar of wrath but of restoration. It will not leave you broken, it will leave you whole, but only after the old is burned away. You have been held hostage by your own doubts, by the weight of decisions made in fear. Now the fire frees you. It unbinds the chains you wrapped around your own spirit, the chains forged by shame, guilt, and silence. This is not a fire you can outrun. It is the fire of divine revelation, consuming what is untrue until only your essence remains. The parts of you that have longed for freedom will rise from these flames like phoenix feathers catching the dawn. You feel the heat crawl over your skin, but there is no pain. There is only release. The fire does not hurt because it is not meant to destroy but to heal. It is the fire that walks with you through the darkest night, guiding you into the dawn. God says this fire is the final cleansing before the rebirth. It will scorch away the lies you believed about yourself, about others, about your purpose. The fire does not judge, it reveals. You cannot control this fire, nor can you hide from it. It is the divine flame that purifies your spirit, exposing every hidden thing until you stand before God unmasked and undefended. The silence that follows this fire is not emptiness but fullness. It is the sacred pause where healing begins, where new life takes root in the ashes of the old. Archangel Michael says the battle is not over, but this fire marks a turning point. The enemy's hold weakens as your spirit ignites. Stand firm in this flame, for it is the forge of your destiny. You may feel weakened now, but this is the strength of transformation. The fire burns away what no longer serves you, making space for the divine to fill. Do not fear the fire. It is not your enemy. It is the hand of God reaching into the depths of your soul, pulling you toward your true self. The fire is the promise of new beginnings, written in light and shadow. It is the sacred flame that will not consume but will remake. And in this fire, you will find your freedom. The sky inside you is breaking open like a cracked shell, a slow eruption of light and sound that no earthly horizon could hold. It is not the blue vastness you once imagined, it is a storm of revelation, fierce and tender all at once, pouring from your soul's core outward until it floods every shadowed corner. God speaks through the collapse, His voice a thunder that shakes the foundations of your hidden fears and whispered lies. It is louder than your shame, more relentless than your silence. You feel it in your chest, a call so raw it burns, demanding everything you are and everything you are not. You are no longer alone in this breaking. The heavens lean closer, breathless, as if watching a sacred battle unfold inside a single human heart. The walls you built crumble not because they were weak, but because they were never meant to hold the divine. Archangel Michael says the sky opens not in destruction but in revelation, and that you are the epicenter of this divine rupture. Your story is not ending, it is beginning, rewritten by the hands of justice and mercy intertwined. You have stood on the edge of surrender, but now you are falling through, free falling into the arms of grace you once thought unreachable. This fall is not defeat but release, a breaking open that invites the wind of heaven to carry you beyond the known. The clouds that once obscured your vision are tearing apart, and in their place blooms an impossible light, wild, uncontainable, and fiercely beautiful. It is the light of your true self, the self God whispered into existence before time began. You see faces in the sky now, ancestors, angels, saints, watching, waiting, welcoming you home. Their eyes hold both sorrow and hope, a mirror of your own journey through fire and shadow. God says you are seen, not as you appear but as you are made. You are known deeply, loved without condition, and called beyond every limit you have ever believed. This calling is not gentle. It shakes the foundations of your soul because it must. The betrayal, the silence, the hidden wounds, they do not define you anymore. They are the soil from which your new life will rise, rich and dark and ready to bear fruit. Archangel Michael stands at your side now, sword sheathed but spirit ablaze. He does not ask if you are ready, he knows you are. The sky opens because you have opened first. There is a stillness after the storm, a sacred hush that wraps around your spirit like a healing breeze. In this silence, you hear God's heartbeat, steady and strong, reminding you that you are safe. The transformation is not over. It will never be over. But this opening sky marks the moment when your soul steps into the light without looking back. You carry scars, yes, but they shine like stars, each one a testimony of survival, of divine justice claimed, of battles won in the unseen. You are both broken and whole, a paradox held in the hands of God's relentless love. This is your true identity, a child of the sky, forged in fire, embraced in light. The horizon stretches infinitely before you now. The path is uncharted but certain. The sky is open from the inside, And you are rising.